Masters of the Universe. A trap for He-Man. The twin moons of planet Eternia shone brightly over the weird peaks of the Mystic Mountain. On the summit of a mighty crag stood Skeletor, Lord of Destruction. Below, in the eternal darkness of the Valley of Osgore, a swarm of his slaves, the Shadow Men, toiled to heave a giant crystal of mentalite onto a flat rock. The Shadow Men scurried away as their evil lord stood in their midst and pointed his energy blade at the crystal.
Now, He-Man,
He exclaimed in triumph.
I shall prepare a trap for you from which there will be no escape. Your strength may be that of 10 men, but I have at my command 100 times 10 of the Shadow People. In the endless night of Osgore, you will be as a blind man, and they will bear you down to your destruction.
Skeletor's eyes glowed as he prepared to release his pent-up thought energy. A blinding bolt shot from Skeletor's energy blade, making the mentalite blaze with inner power. He aimed his thoughts at the crystal, which took them and set them speeding faster than light across the sleeping planet to Castle Grayskull. There, Teela, the warrior goddess, lay deep in sleep. As Eternia's red sun rose, Teela woke up. It was barely daybreak, but someone was calling her. There was no sound, but clearly in her mind rang the words,
Teela, it is I, He-Man, who summons you.
He-Man, most powerful of the Masters of the Universe, only summoned his companions in arms in times of great peril. Ordering her servants to make her horse ready, Teela seized Cobra, the power scepter, which was both energy weapon and the means of her power over animals. Within moments, she was galloping across the drawbridge in answer to the summons. Generating a video lens with his energy blade, Skeletor watched as Teela's horse bore her swiftly across the land.
When she discovers that it was not He-Man, but I who summoned her, it will be too late. And she is the bait to lure that muscle-bound meddler into my trap.
Teela was fast approaching a rocky outcrop when her horse shied, and Cobra glowed with pulsing light as it sensed danger. A vast shape, part lion, part reptile, rose above the rocks. Still clutching Cobra, Teela was flung to the ground by her frightened mount. Jumping to her feet, she faced the snarling monster. The eyes of Cobra glowed red, holding the monster's gaze.
I know your kind,
Cried Teela.
You are one of the Lyazard people. I mean you no harm. Go in peace.
She lowered Cobra, and, released from the energy scepter's magical power, the Lyazard turned away and was swiftly lost to view. While the land dropped steeply down to the ocean of Gnarl, Teela reined in her horse. He-Man's message sounded from directly ahead, from the far shore. Would she have to make the long journey around? She scanned the beach. There was no craft of any sort. Holding Cobra aloft, she beamed out desperate thought waves.
Help me, He-Man. Which way must I go?
Then, a speck in the sky caught her attention. The speck grew bigger. It was Stratos, the winged warrior. I will bear you on your way, cried Stratos. A summons from the Lord He-Man to one is a summons to all. Teela dismounted and spoke to her horse.
Return to Castle Grayskull.
And as the horse wheeled and galloped obediently away, she wrapped her arms around the powerful body of Stratos and rose with him high into the morning sky. From a lone, rocky islet, a sharp-eyed sea dweller spotted the speeding Stratos and his fair passenger. Through the dim caverns of the sea world, his warning echoed.
Master! Master! Enemies!
From his inner grotto, Merman, ocean warlord and servant of Skeletor, used aqua power to mind-scan the air and sky above.
Stratos, Teela,
He hissed.
they will be mine, and I will win favor of the Lord Skeletor. Better, I will bargain with my Lord of Destruction for a share of his power in return for my prisoners.
The video beam of aqua power became a whirling column of water reaching high above the surface of the sea, forming a water spout. Then a second one, and a third. Soon half a dozen twisting columns of water reached to the clouds and the soaring Stratos.
Brace yourself!
He cried to Tila.
This is the evil work of Merman!
Even as he spoke, the water spouts found them. Stratos banked and rolled as the whirling water spouts twisted him about. His feathers heavy with seawater, he was steadily losing height. Tila's fingers slipped on his wet body. Then, for a moment, Stratos was surrounded by the spiraling water, and Tila was snatched from him. Down she spun inside the water spout towards the cold, dim world of the sea. As the waters closed over the warrior goddess, Merman blasted a stream of zero energy from his weapon, imprisoning her in a frozen bubble of crystal-clear ice. Quickly, she aimed Cobra at the ice, but the power scepter was made useless by the zero energy. She was weaponless.
Your toy cannot help you now.
Laughed Merman.
And my people are of the sea and care nothing for your magic scepter. Here you will stay to await the pleasure of my lord, Skeletor.
Ignoring Merman's mocking words, Tila gripped Cobra and brought all her mind energy to bear on the distress call of the Masters of the Universe. And slowly, the Cobra head began to glow. It grew brighter, as dimly, beyond the walls of her ice-bubble prison, a dark shape loomed through the green darkness. Cobra flashed rapidly, and Tila felt her mind being probed by strange thought waves. A giant narwhal swam into view. Its small eyes gleamed, and its ivory tusk caught the faint undersea light. Tila picked up its thoughts.
Who has imprisoned you? You who are of the air?
Your master, Merman.
Replied Tila.
No master of mine, that creeping sea slug. I too am of the air. I too have warm blood.
Replied the narwhal. It backed off a short distance, then with a crash it shattered the ice with its tusk, and Tila was borne swiftly upwards on its back. By a lonely beach on the far shore, Tila bid farewell to the narwhal. Beyond the beach lay dense forest filled with the sounds of wild animals. Tila pushed through the undergrowth. It would be a long and weary journey on foot to the other side of the forest. Cobra began to glow, and at the same moment, something big came crashing through the trees towards her. It was a giant stag, and it stood trembling before the bright glow of the red eyes of Cobra.
You must carry me on your broad back swiftly to the Lord He-Man,
said Tila, as the stag knelt for her to mount. In a moment, they were traveling faster than the wind through the forest. With a piercing shriek, a shaggy half-animal figure sprang in front, and the stag skidded to a halt.
Beastman!
Cried Tila, holding up Cobra. Beastman flinched and turned his eyes away from the pulsing scepter, at the same time sending his stun whip lashing out at Tila. Swerving to avoid the flailing whip, Tila put her heels to the stag. With a roar of rage, Beastman raised his weapon again, but a charge from Cobra bowled him off his feet as Tila urged her mount to even greater speed. The savage Beastman lumbered in pursuit for a few paces, then seizing a low branch, he swung himself into a tree and continued the chase through the treetops. Steadily, Tila drew away from her pursuer. But what was that ahead? Through the trees there was a glint of water. A lake over whose dark surface mists and vapors drifted, and in whose murky depths strange reptiles lurked. There was no way across. She would have to go around. Along the lake shore galloped Tila, while fierce eyes watched and clutching claws reached out from the water as she passed. Around the narrow end of the evil lake sped the stag and Tila. Not far behind, Beastman raced through the branches, swinging his great bulk from tree to tree, hand over hand on the tangle of creepers growing through the leaves. And there, across a narrow arm of the lake, he caught a glimpse of his quarry. The forest reached out far from the bank on both sides. Clutching a loose strand of vine, Beastman swung up and out over the lake. Tila glimpsed the flying figure and turned to aim an energy blast. The stag reared at the blaze of fire, and her aim went wide, missing Beastman, but striking a tree branch just as his clutching fingers closed around it. With a shriek of terror, he hurtled headlong into the water. Instantly, the water was aboil as the creatures of the lake swarmed. Lashing out with his foot in a broken tree branch, Beastman fought his way to the bank. Bruised and battered, he dragged himself clear of the water. Trembling with rage, he raised his great arms above his head and bellowed out his terrifying battle cry. The animals of the forest cowered at the awful sound, and the stag quickened its pace as the sound echoed through the trees behind.